Hey, welcome back everyone. Today we're going to talk through the air filter and related labs. So I'm just going to rotate here around so you can see me better. The whole focus of this lab is to look at the components that regulate or measure the amount of air that's entering your engine. Now, if you've taken small engines or you've looked at engine operation theory a little bit, you'll remember that realistically an engine needs fuel or gasoline or diesel and air mixed in the right proportions in order for that engine to work properly. Okay, so the air filter and everything we're going to talk about today really goes forward in controlling that air, or at least measuring the amount of air entering the engine so that the engine can compensate with the proper amount of fuel. Okay, so we're going to look at a few things here today with this lab. We're going to be looking at the air filter. Okay, we're going to be looking at the throttle and throttle body. We're also going to be looking at the PCV valve. Throughout the lab, we are going to talk through some basics or some of the other parts of the system, but at least those are the three main things we're going to look at today. So, tools and equipment today are pretty straightforward. At minimum, you're probably going to need some various screwdrivers. It really depends on your vehicle. So like for my vehicle, I think I'll need a flathead screwdriver, maybe a Phillips, maybe a socket set. Again, depends on the vehicle. And then we will also need some paper towels or shop rags and something called throttle body and air intake cleaner. Okay, a lot of our air system components have really sensitive parts, and so they've developed specialized cleaners to clean them. Okay, so for instance, it would be a really bad idea to take carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner and clean off your throttle body with it. Okay, you're going to damage components and basically damage the car. So just be aware of that. If this throttle body and air intake cleaner may not be necessary depending on what's in your car, but if you do want to use some cleaner on it and some solvent, this would be the stuff to get. Let's dive in here. So we popped the hood. Again, I've got my 94 Ford Ranger here. When you're submitting this lab, you are going to need to record all the information on the vehicle, the date of the lab, mileage, make, model, year. I forget if I have you record the VIN number or not too, but record all that basic information. And on that lab sheet, you're going to see it's going to ask you for a few pictures. Okay, you're actually going to be submitting pictures of your stuff here. You're going to be submitting pictures of the air filter, the PCV valve, and the throttle body. And all this stuff is going to be the internals of it. We want to see what's going inside there. Okay? The first thing you're going to need to do before you do anything is really identify where stuff is on your vehicle. Okay? If you're unsure, there's a few places. First of all, probably most accurate is going to be your owner's manual. Okay? Assuming you have the owner's manual for your vehicle, you are going to be able to look in there and it will tell you where all these other components are. Okay? In a pinch, you can also look online. A lot of our newer vehicles, the manuals or diagrams in those manuals will be online. Worst case scenario, what you can do is just do a quick Google image search. Okay, so for your and your car or your vehicles, the locations of these various parts. I would encourage you to not do that because there is a lot of misinformation on the internet. So just be aware of that. But okay, when you're trying to find the air filter and stuff, you're most likely going to see a big tube here. Okay, now this tube is your air intake tube. Okay, so again, we're talking about air, so this is probably going to be where you want to start. If you follow that back, you're probably going to get to some place that says air filter or a big box like this. That is your air filter. Inside there is your filter that sucks out any of the debris or stops any of the debris from entering your engine. Okay, so we're going to open that up and take a look. Okay, you'll also see on this tube we have a mass airflow sensor. Okay, sometimes that can get gummed up. It might need to be replaced, or again, you guessed it, we have a specialized solvent, mass airflow sensor cleaner. Not going to be something I want you to do on your vehicle because that is a pretty easily damaged part if you're not careful with handling it, but you should know that's at least there. Okay, you're going to follow this tube in, okay, and now we get to the meat of our car right on top of that engine. Okay, this is your throttle body. Okay, so inside here is a lever. Okay, I kind of like to explain it like if you've seen Fast and Furious, I think some of those cars, you can see the butterfly wings inside the intakes moving up and down. That's your throttle body intake, okay? On top of the throttle body intake, we have a throttle position sensor. Okay, that tells your engine, tells the electronics where that throttle is, so it can adjust the amount of gasoline that gets mixed in. And we also might have what's called an idle air control valve. Okay, again, this controls the amount of gasoline that enters it when this car is at an idle. Okay, and so we're going to start again. Again, these two pieces, your throttle position sensor and your idle air control, you're not going to do anything with today, but you should at least know they're there. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up, and we'll show you our first two parts of this lab. All right, and here we go. We have the engine or the air system opened up. Now, by no means do you have to take your whole air intake tube off like this. I simply did it for ease of demonstration. Essentially what you need to get to is you need to get into here, okay, and you need to be able to see into here. So first of all, over here, this is your air filter, okay? Now sometimes, okay, you'll have just a paper element like this. You might also have some filters are reusable. They'll have a wire mesh around it. Okay, essentially what you're looking for, okay, is you're looking for this to be fairly clean. Okay, if this is nearly black, okay, even this is a little yellowed from what a new filter is. If this is completely black, that means it's time to be replaced. Okay, realistically, you only need to replace your air filter as needed. Okay, I've seen vehicles where mice will get in and chew this up. Okay, well, you don't want all this material getting sucked into your engine. Okay, and if the air filter is chewed up, you're gonna have other debris sucked into your engine. Okay, this one is actually pretty good shape, so I'm gonna go ahead and reinsert it. Okay, you're gonna put it back in the exact same way it came out. Okay, in this case, it was face down. Okay, looks like my cover is a little bit in the way there. There we go. Okay, I got to be careful because there's some sensor connections in there that I don't want to damage, and I just didn't want to disconnect them. So just be aware of that you might have those in there. All right, something's not quite seating right. There we go. Now it's seating down in there good. We're good to go. Okay. In order, if you need to clean out your air filter, you can do a couple things. You should just lightly tap it on the ground or on something. You don't want to spray high-powered compressed air through it, because that will ruin your filter. Here at school, we can throttle down the air pressure down to about 20 psi. That's about the most psi you want going through that air filter to clean it out. Okay. Next, we're gonna come over here to our throttle, okay? And there's that butterfly that I was talking about. If I pull on the throttle cable, okay, you can see it opening. This directly connects, okay, to my gas pedal, okay, my gas pedal in the cab, okay? When it's dirty, you'll see those butterfly wings being real dark, okay? They might have some sooty appearance on them. Here's where you would take your throttle body cleaner. Okay, you'd spray it directly on those butterfly wings and then wipe it off with your shop towel, your paper towel. When you do that, you will get a bit of a rough running engine to start, but after about 5 or 10 minutes, that should go away. Okay, if you're really concerned about your engine being dirty, you can shine a light into your throttle body, okay, and you can see how dirty it is. There's not much you're gonna be able to do in there without taking your whole butterfly wing off, and that's not something we're going to do today. Okay, so both these things, a clean air filter and your cleaned throttle body butterfly wings, you're gonna take pictures of those and submit them in on Google Classroom Forms. Now, one thing I didn't show you in that last video is actually looking at this air tube. This air tube in this vehicle is plastic, right? Plastic and rubber, and so sometimes that plastic can break down. Okay, when you're looking at this, you're going to want to feel around your air intake tube and just feel for any cracks. Okay, a little story about this particular engine, this particular truck. About a year ago, I noticed at an idle specifically, it would stall out a lot. Okay, couldn't figure it out. Kind of figured it had to do something with either the gas or the air. Well, the throttle was working properly, throttle body and sensor and all that stuff were working, and so that meant air. Okay. Went to it and said, okay, let's look at our mass airflow sensor. I was about to take that off, and I noticed that underneath this bellow here, I could see through it. It had been worn away and chewed away. Okay, that bellow was completely gone. So excess air was leaking in past my mass airflow sensor, throwing the whole computer off. I got a used, it was off a salvaged vehicle, a used air intake tube. My problems went away. Okay, so you're gonna want to feel around your air intake tube, make note of any issues in the lab sheet, and get those submitted. Now next, we are going to look at the PCV valve. Now the PCV valve is called a positive crankcase pressure valve. Okay, essentially what that does is it serves to maintain proper pressure inside the crankcase. Okay, so here's where we can get into engine operation. Okay, invariably some of the spent fuel and gas mixture, the exhaust fumes, will leak past the cylinder, past the pistons, and into the crankcase. Okay, gases will get into that crankcase. It's just a reality. Okay, once upon a time, those gases were simply exhausted out the vehicle and went into the atmosphere. Okay, that was before we were very concerned about pollution. Now that we've gotten a little more concerned about pollution, we've said, hey, we've got to try to burn some of the contaminants out of that gas again, out of those fumes. Okay, and so enter our positive crankcase pressure valve. Okay, that valve regulates the amount of gases getting back into our air intake. Okay, so it'll actually be cycling some gases from the crankcase, okay, into our cylinders again. Okay, and an interesting tidbit on engine operation, helps a lot with air quality, does a lot of good things for us. Okay. Finding our PCV valve can be a little tricky because, again, it's not labeled. Okay, it's not like these parts have a big sign on them and says PCV valve here. Okay, you're gonna have to use your brain a little bit. You're gonna look in your manual, or sometimes there will be a diagram on the front of the underside of your hood. Okay, and that will be a vacuum hose diagram, particularly on trucks. Okay, and so we can see here, it shows where our PCV valve is. Okay, so from here we can kind of work backwards. Okay, so there's the throttle body. We know what that is. Okay, off the throttle body, okay, we have some connections, we have some vacuum hoses on the right-hand side. So I'm gonna start by looking on the right-hand side. Okay, it also helps to know what a PCV valve actually looks like. Okay, and that's what we're gonna look for. Okay, so we're on the right-hand side of the throttle body, the air intake. Okay, and our PCV valve is actually right down here. Okay, I had to go on the Ford website, I think it was Ford website, and actually look at where this was, and I found it was right here. Okay, so to check this, we're simply going to take it out. We're going to take off this hosing in here, okay, and we should be able to lift our valve straight out. Okay, try not to drop it, otherwise you'll be in for a world of hurt. Okay, and there's our PCV valve. When you shake it, you should be able to hear it clicking. You can hear that. Sometimes these PCV valves get gummed up. Okay, that'll cause poor engine performance. It can also have an impact on gas mileage. Okay, this one is a little gummed up. So what we're going to do here, we're actually going to wipe down the surface of that with a rag and reinsert. So you're going to take a picture of your PCV valve, and away we go. Once that PCV valve is open, and before we close the hood, we really need to do a double check just to make sure we got everything back sealed down tight. Okay, so we're gonna come over here, we're gonna double check our air filter. Yep, I got all the screws back down, that thing's tight. Okay, we're gonna check the air tube connection to our throttle. That looks good, we're set to go there. And then we're also going to look at our PCV valve. Once we have those things double checked, we just double check to make sure we didn't leave anything behind or we didn't ruin anything. Then we can go ahead and wrap up this lab. And that's a wrap. So in this lab, we looked at a few different things. We were looking at the air system today. Okay, so we looked at air filter. Okay, we showed you how to check that air filter, kind of what to look for. We looked at the throttle and the throttle body, showed you what to look for in there. We talked about inspection of that air intake tube. And finally, we looked at the PCV valve. Okay, throughout this, if you have questions submitting this lab, don't be afraid to stop, give me a call, email, what have you. Worst case scenario, let's think this through. This would be kind of cool. Maybe you're struggling with this. We'll start a Google Meet on your phone. Okay, get your Google Meet going with your phone. Take me to your engine. We can probably work you through it and talk you through it from there. Okay, so good luck. If you have questions, don't be afraid to stop and ask me, and away we go.